Hello and welcome to a TIC News Special from Jakarta. I'm Dalton Tanamaka.
Selamat berjumpa lagi. I am Luisa Kusnandar. Thank you for joining us. It was his introduction to the world, Indonesia's new president, making 3 global appearances in 9 days.
And Joko Widodo hit the ground running, impressing fellow leaders and analysts. The Indonesia channel's Andita Winda reports on his performance at the Group of 20 summit in Australia.
In his first appearance as Indonesia's new president, Joko Widodo presented his vision for the nation's economic future at the G20 summit in Brisbane, Australia. Taxation is also on Widodo's list of economic reforms. He aims to increase the tax-to-GDP ratio to 16% from the current level of around 13%, which would bring Indonesia nearly at par with Malaysia.
The government needs to have a target from 13 to 16. It's a target that the government wants to achieve. It's a good way to also to convince foreign investors that the government knows what to do and have a certain target to fulfill.
At the end of the 2-day summit, the 20 biggest wealthy and developing economies issued a communique spanning issues from boosting economic growth, accelerating infrastructure development, and preventing corruption. President Widodo also held bilateral talks with several other heads of state. He met Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi, discussing cooperation in sectors of creative economy such as leather and fashion products. Widodo also held a separate meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel on his last day at the summit. Andita Winda, The Indonesia Channel.
We get reactions now to Jokowi's global debut.
Dewi Fortuna Anwar is an analyst, a political analyst, and she joins us now from the Habibie Center in Jakarta. Dewi, G20 is supposed to be all about economies and boosting the financial situations of countries. How much did the Putin-Ukraine issue hijack this gathering initially?
Well, I don't think the Ukraine-Putin issue actually hijacked the gathering, because that seems to imply that the G20 meeting in Brisbane failed to achieve its objective. I think that the main agenda of dealing with the current global financial situation, promoting closer economic cooperation between the countries, were achieved there, and the Putin issue became a major issue, I think, more in the media, because Putin left early, and there was some suggestions that he was a bit upset, the fact that he was treated like a pariah. But on the whole, I'm sure that the Australian hosts would argue that the meeting met its basic objective.
Dewi, President Widodo pitched economic reform. How hard were the others listening to the newest leader in the group?
The election of President Joko Widodo was widely covered internationally. He was widely applauded when he won the election, so that he was a very, very popular leader when he attended the summit. I understand that when he was in APEC, where he met a number of the leaders who in fact attended the G20 summit, he was treated by rock star, particularly by the business groups. So he has a value of novelty. And many of these leaders from the G20 countries are actually very, very interested, of course, to hear what President Joko Widodo has to say about the future direction of Indonesia. So I would be very surprised if they were not listening to what President Joko Widodo had to say very, very closely. So his commitment towards reform in Indonesia, his stress on good governance, his stress on making business more efficient, cutting red tapes, and so on and so forth, I think that were listened to very carefully, and they would be very, very interested in seeing how he would implement that kind of policies.
Upon returning home, Dewi, as you know, Jokowi cut fuel subsidies, which pushed gas prices up about 30%. Now, was the timing of this move, do you think, following his global debut, coincidental?
It's not coincidental. In fact, if President Joko Widodo were not traveling overseas to attend APEC, ASEAN East Asia Summit, and the G20, the cutting of the fuel subsidies probably could have been done earlier. Because if you remember, the cutting of fuel subsidies and giving subsidies to better targets were in fact part of his political campaign promises. So the national community as well as the international community were already well informed about the intention of this government. So I would argue that it is mostly a delaying of the announcement because he had to do the traveling that he had to do. And his colleagues overseas in APEC, in ASEAN and East Asia Summit and in G20 were probably all asking him, when actually are you going to cut the fuel subsidies, Mr. President?
Dewi Fisheries Minister Susi Pujiastuti advised Jokowi to quit G20, saying that the membership doesn't benefit the country. What do you say?
I don't see why Indonesia should quit the G20. Countries belonging to G20 are there because of the weight of their economy. Those countries that do not make the grade yet cannot be part of the G20. Indonesia is part of the G20 because our economy is now number 15 or number 16. And this is now considered the prominent high table in the world where the economic powerhouse, all of the economic powers get together, where they get to discuss about various issues and where they can make decisions collectively and cooperatively. So it would be rather strange indeed if Indonesia were to pull out of the G20 when many countries would want to be part of this global decision-making process when it comes to to the economy issues. What we should criticize is, of course, we should not simply be in the G20 as an observer, as an inactive participant where we are not able to contribute positively towards the various decision-making process. So Indonesia should strengthen its capacity, it should strengthen its ability to communicate what its positions and what its views are, and then try to back our words with our action. And of course, that is a place we should be able to defend our economic interests rather than out of it.
Dewi Fortuna Anwar of the Habibie Center, please stick around. We want to get your analysis of the other summits. This TIC News Special will continue shortly.
Jokowi's global debut began in Beijing. We hear his APEC pitch in English to international business leaders. That's next.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Hahn, and this is Executive Golf. Good shot.
Executive Golf, only on the Indonesia Channel.
Matches.
Passion for Fashion, only on the Indonesia Channel. The best of Bali, only on the Indonesia Channel.
The Indonesia Channel is the country's first 24-hour English TV channel. And it's cool, offering a stylish mix of entertainment and news programs created for viewers around the world. You'll see the latest fashion trends in the world's fourth most populous country, play executive golf with host Lorraine Hahn, Plus, movies, dramas, and travel, all on the Indonesia channel for the world to see.
You are watching a TIC news special on Jokowi's debut.
And we are coming to you from the Jakarta studio of the Indonesia channel, the country's first with 24 hours in English. Now, the president's debut began in Beijing, China, where leaders of Asia-Pacific economies gathered for the APEC summit.
And Joko Widodo has made it clear he was all about business, making a direct pitch to business leaders. The Indonesia channel's Janice Liu has the details.
President Joko Widodo made his first overseas trip when he attended the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Economic Leaders Meeting on November 10 and 11 in Beijing, China. At the event, Widodo put out a call for greater investment in the archipelago and promised a friendlier climate for doing business in the country. He invited foreign investors to invest in infrastructure projects as it would create mutual benefits.
And we plan to build our railway network. Now we have already in Java, and we want to build in Sumatra Island, in Kalimantan Island, in Sulawesi Island, and also in Papua Island. This is your opportunity.
Widodo aims to create one-stop service for investment and business licensing in the near future. Indonesia has long been seen as a country that is rife with bureaucratic red tape and corruption, making it difficult for foreign investors to penetrate the market. But due to its abundant natural resources, Indonesia remains a country with ample opportunities for doing business. On the sidelines, Widodo also met with U.S. President Barack Obama for bilateral talks. Obama also credited Indonesia as a leading example of tolerance and pluralism in the world, as well as the democracy with the largest Muslim population.
Indonesia adalah negara Muslim terbesar di dunia dan sudah melaksanakan pemilihan presiden dan dilaksanakan dengan sebuah pesta demokrasi yang sangat bagus, dan ini menunjukkan bahwa Islam dan demokrasi bisa berjalan dengan baik.
Widodo also reaffirmed Indonesia's commitment to fight terrorism with the U.S. Obama reiterated that the U.S. wants to be a partner in the process of improving Indonesia's prosperity. A comprehensive partnership was proposed across economic, security, and development sectors. Janice Liu, The Indonesia Channel.
What was somewhat surprising was that President Widodo made his entire presentation in English.
Here is more now from that investment pitch.
In 5 years, we want to build 24 seaport and deep seaport. As you know that we have 17,000 islands, so we need seaport and we need deep seaport. And this is your opportunity. The picture shows you our Jakarta port, Tanjung Priok port. In 2009, the capacity is 3.6 million TEUs a year. And our plan in 2017 is around 15 million TEUs a year. Now we talk about mass transportation. We want to build our mass transportation in 6 big cities in Indonesia. We have started in Jakarta last year. And we want to build in Medan, in Makassar, in Semarang, in Bandung, in Surabaya. So this is also your opportunity. Electricity. We need power plant. We need around 35,000 megawatt to build our industry, to build our project, to build our industrial zone, our manufacture zone. So we need power plant. This is also your opportunity to invest in this project.
Let's bring in Dewi Fortuna Anwar of the Habibie Center again.
Dewi, some critics say that Jokowi's presentation was too simplistic. What did you think of his speech at the CEO summit?
Well, I've only followed it from afar, but I understand that Pak Jokowi wowed the audience. As I said, he had a rock star reception from the business leaders there. His down-to-earth communication style, his PowerPoint presentations, trying to demonstrate the various potentials that Indonesia has. And also, this was the first forum in which he openly explained his maritime axis vision. I think he was very, very effective, and he was very, very warmly well received.
Did Jokowi meet your expectations standing alongside the world's most powerful leaders?
I've not heard any negative or any major criticisms of his performance. I don't know whether people are being kind because this is his first debut. It's a new president and there's a lot of well wishes. But from what I've heard, he has done pretty well.
Do you believe the US president's childhood connection with Indonesia will help Jokowi as it did his predecessor?
The United States of America is a big country. And it runs on very, very clear ideas of what its position in the world is. Clearly, it is very nice that the current president of the United States knows Indonesia well and has good feelings about Indonesia and wishes to work closely with Indonesia. But we should not over-romanticize this either. When it comes to economic interests, when it comes to security interests, when it's come to political interests, there are a lot of commonalities, there are a lot of convergent areas where Indonesia and the United States are on the same page. But there are also in many other areas where we do have our differences. But when we agree to disagree on certain issues, then, we should disagree. But I think that under the current administration, Indonesia is very well treated. Any issues that arise from Indonesia probably get executive attention more quickly than in the previous era when there's not that hands-on knowledge about Indonesia. But when we have disagreements about free ports or Newmont and so on, that still needs to be resolved rationally, not sentimentally.
Dewi, please stay with us for a bit more. There is more to come in this TIC News Special.
From Beijing to Myanmar, how Jokowi took his place among ASEAN leaders, just ahead.
Indonesia's first 24-hour English TV channel is here, with an exciting mix of programming to inform and entertain viewers around the world. The Indonesia channel offers something for everyone, from world-class lifestyle shows like Yoga Bliss to the hottest music hits and artists on iPop. News and information are an important part of the Indonesia channel, with Today's Indonesia and ASEAN Today providing what you need to know. International hosts such as Lorraine Han, Jamie Aditya, Caitlin Turner, and Dalton Kanonaka are among the faces you'll see. Movies, dramas, travel, and more are all on the Indonesia channel for the world to see.
Matches.
passion for fashion, only on the Indonesia Channel. The best of Bali, only on the Indonesia Channel.
Hello, I'm Ahok, Governor of Jakarta. Congratulations on the launching of the Indonesia Channel. I hope success for all of us.
Indonesia opens up my heart, unforgettable. Love is just the start. Indonesia touches my soul, keeps my heart always warm from the cold. A very beautiful place, and with friendly smiles. Heaven is this place on earth, wonderful Indonesia. The power of love, surprises of love. All your dreams will all come true in Indonesia. I like Indonesia. You will always be in my heart. I love Indonesia. You give dreams a place to start. Go, Indonesia. Go, Indonesia. Go, Indonesia. Go,
The Indonesia Channel for the world to see.
This is a TIC News Special.
And we are looking at the global debut of President Joko Widodo. The 25th ASEAN Summit in Myanmar was a venue to unveil Indonesia's priorities closer to home.
The issues of fair trade and regional stability dominated the discussion. The Indonesia Channel's Prisma Kinanti has the story.
President Joko Widodo and other world leaders met in Myanmar's capital of Nay Pyi Taw for the 25th ASEAN Summit on November 12th and 13th. Jokowi raised two key issues at the summit: fair trade and regional stability. With the ASEAN Economic Community scheduled to begin next year, President Widodo demanded that nations engage in fair trade practices with Indonesia. He told fellow ASEAN members that Indonesia would not allow itself to become merely a market for goods produced by neighboring countries. Instead, Indonesia should play an important role in the regional and global production supply chain. But analysts say that Jokowi should implement bureaucratic reforms at home to support his economic plans.
Jokowi has to solve problems in Indonesia with respect to the licenses, with respect to the land issues, and also the slowness of bureaucracy. Jokowi needs to give protection to the investors so that they are not going to be in a situation where there's no legal uncertainty.
Analysts also advised Jokowi to assure investors that there's no corruption when they invest here in Indonesia. Other than trade issues, Jokowi also confirms Indonesia's commitment to ensure stable regional security, especially in regards to the South China Sea dispute. Jokowi appealed to all parties to refrain from using military force and to continue implementing ASEAN's Code of Conduct in the dispute. He promised that Indonesia would play an active role as an honest broker.
In addition, Jokowi also pointed out that ASEAN should participate in tackling global issues that threaten human security, such as infectious disease, climate change, human trafficking, and natural disasters. Prisma Kinanti, the Indonesia Channel.
Final perspectives now from Dewi Fortuna Anwar of the Habibie Center. Dewi, what is your analysis of the South China Sea issue? Is ASEAN being tough enough?
ASEAN has done much better in the past 1 year or 2 years in getting its act together. If one remembers the disarray that happened in 2012, I think, in Cambodia, yeah, where ASEAN failed to come to an agreement, failed to issue a joint communique for the first time in its history. So for the past 2 years, ASEAN has worked much harder in trying to get a more united front. We are still waiting for the conclusion of the negotiations that will lead to the signing of the Code of Conduct on the South China Sea. Hopefully, after the last summit, ASEAN and China will move forward to get to this agreement, which is a more binding agreement. At the moment, with a declaration of conduct on the South China Sea, of course, it's all very good, but it is, after all, it's just a declaration. It is not binding. So I think that we should make sure that ASEAN remains united, remains cohesive, does not allow itself to be divided and conquered when dealing with, the security of our maritime areas.
Dewi, President Widodo discussed his Maritime Access Program at the summit. What impact will this have on regional relations?
I think it indicates that Indonesia will pay even more attention than it has already done on maritime issues. We have said so many times that Indonesia is a maritime continent, that most of the conflicts, current conflicts and future conflicts will be in maritime areas, that most of our prosperity now will be very much dependent on managing the maritime arena very well. But we have just talked about it without realizing it too much. So with this focus on developing our maritime resources, in ensuring good governance in the maritime areas, ensuring also that Indonesia is able to leverage this strategic position between the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, we would be able to align our different ministries, our different sectors, to work together to achieve this. And if we in Indonesia are able to get our act together, then we will be more effective in dealing with the other ASEAN countries and other maritime areas. Other countries just wait for Indonesia to see what Indonesia will do, whether we stop at the rhetorical statements or whether we actually show a different way of managing, of doing things than before. So I think that they are interested to hear what Indonesia has to say. And they, of course, they say, this is, it is only very commonsensical for Indonesia to say that, we want to re-emphasize again our maritime status. But if we do not really get the necessary institutions, the necessary regulations, the necessary human resources and the way of doing things in line with this vision, then people, of course, will say, it's business as usual with Indonesia. So what the president has stated, he first mentioned it in APEC meetings and then in the ASEAN and East Asia Summit, and he also re-emphasized it again in Brisbane in the G20 about Indonesia's maritime identity and the focus on, making Indonesia as a maritime access. I think all of these countries will want to see how Indonesia implement this vision.
Last question, Dewi. ASEAN Economic Community 2015. Is Indonesia ready for this?
We don't have a choice of saying, if we keep saying, are we ready? Are we ready? Are we making ourselves ready? Let us ask ourselves again, what are we doing to make ourselves ready? Because it's not a choice of whether we are part of the integration or not. Indonesia is, in fact, the largest member of ASEAN. We are in it. We agreed to have an ASEAN community with 3 pillars: the political security community, the ASEAN economic community, and the social cultural community. And whether ASEAN is ready or not, to a large extent, depends on whether Indonesia is ready or not. And we should be asking ourselves, what are we doing to prepare ourselves? Here in this case, we should not continue to be wasting our time doing navel gazing and complaining that, we are simply being exploited. We are the biggest, so we should be able to help dictate some of the terms as well. And to make sure that in areas where we have agreed, we are really, really well prepared for it. So the most important thing now is to make sure that all of the ministries understand very well what the implications, all the ministries on institutions within the government itself have to be on the same page of where we are heading. And then the government should prepare also the wider society, our business community, our civil society, that they are well informed about what an ASEAN community is about, what the major components are, and how to achieve that major components. Who is responsible for what? The central government, the regional government, the various sectors, state, society, and so on. We should have a clear map. So instead of saying, are we ready, and I say, what are we doing to make ourselves ready?
The Habibie Center's Dewi Fortuna Anwar, thank you very much. And thank you for watching this TIC News Special, Jokowi's Debut from Jakarta. I'm Dalton Tanonaka.
Terima kasih, I'm Luisa Kusnandar. We'll be back with Today's Indonesia tomorrow. See you then.